none of those buildings fell. All of them survived.
Hi, and welcome to a special on-the-ground episode of Basis Point. We're coming to you from the 2025 edition of Building Bridges, Geneva's annual Sustainable Finance Conference, just a few steps away from the United Nations. And today, we met someone whose job quite literally saves more lives than yours. And well, yes, let's be honest, mine too. I sat down with Kamal Kishore, head of the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. What does that office actually do, and why are they here at a conference about sustainable finance? And what does disaster resilience even have to do with the future of our economies? Mr. Kishore gave us some powerful answers to these questions. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and follow us so you never miss an episode of Basis Point. So, if you're looking to restore just a tiny hope in humanity, I highly recommend you watch this, because the link between finance and the safety of billions of people is stronger than you might think. Kamal Kishore, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's just start by defining the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. Can you tell us what it is and what it does?
So my office, the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, works with 193 governments, private sector, civil society, academia, to ensure that people around the world are safer from disasters. Back in 2015, the international community, all the UN member states, came together and adopted a framework which was called Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. It has got 7 targets. 4 targets are related to reducing losses, reducing deaths, reducing economic impact, reducing number of people affected by disasters, and reducing infrastructure losses. And 3 are related to increasing capacities, increasing access to early warning, increasing plans and strategies for disaster risk reduction, and increasing international cooperation. My office is custodian of the Sendai framework, and we work with the governments in encouraging them, in supporting them in the implementation of Sendai framework towards these loss reductions and capacity enhancement.
And do you have any flagship projects right now that you're undertaking?
We have a number of flagship projects. Let me just highlight 3. The first is we are working on something called early warning for all. Along with it, we are also working on combating extreme heat. 3 years ago, the UN Secretary General issued this call that by 2027, every person on the planet should have a reasonable access to early warning of impending disasters. So this is a very, very important initiative, very critical, because we want people who are living in areas where cyclones occur, where floods occur, where tsunamis occur, to have timely, understandable, and actionable early warning.
And have we had significant advances in these early warning systems?
Absolutely. So if you look at areas which are cyclone prone, if you were 15 years ago, if you were living in a cyclone prone area, and compared to that now the chances of dying from a cyclone are 1/3 of what they were 15 years ago. So we've had huge improvement in access to early warning across the world, but not enough.
Was the Southeast Asian tsunami kind of a wake-up call for these
Yes,
early warnings?
Southeast Asian tsunami was a wake-up call. It really highlighted the need for multilateral action, recognizing that early warning is not something that can be done by any country by itself, whether it's a developed country or developing countries, because hazards do not respect political boundaries. They do not respect whether you are a developed country or a developing country. So when a tsunami occurs, the source of the tsunami can be sometimes 10,000 kilometers away from where it is impacting. So you need to collaborate, cooperate with countries that are around the rim of the ocean. If you see the impact of this work, a few months ago there was a large earthquake on the eastern coast of Russia, which triggered a tsunami. Within half an hour, communities in Japan on the Pacific coast, communities in California on the western coast of the United States, and many islands, inhabited islands in the Pacific Ocean, got a warning within 30 minutes. They didn't just get a warning that a tsunami might be impending, but they also had preparedness about what to do. we run a major program called Getting to High Ground with the support of Government of Japan, where we are working with countries across the world that are exposed to tsunamis to have this public awareness, to not just receive warning, but have the ability to act on that warning.
So you're highlighting international cooperation and the important work you're doing with member states of the United Nations. So what are you doing here today at Building Bridges, which is a financial industry event gathering the private sector?
This is a very good question. I think this is the place to be if you want to make the next leap. This connects me to your earlier question, what are your flagship programs? So you have a flagship program called Risk to Resilience Finance. So let me give short background. In the last decade on decade, we've been reducing the number of deaths from disasters. So we've made great progress. So target A of Sendai framework that I talked about. But on other targets, in terms of reducing the number of people affected, economic losses, or infrastructure losses, we've made no progress. In fact, we are going in the other way.
How come?
Because we are not embedding enough disaster risk reduction in all the development finance. So when you build a bridge, when you build an airport, when you build a hospital, when you build a school, how do you build it so that it is resilient to future earthquakes, future tsunamis, future cyclones, future floods? I think that is really a discussion on finance. How do you make a financial case for investing in risk reduction? That's where I'm here. People at this conference are going to help me make the next leap from saving lives to saving livelihoods.
Because that's kind of the general vibe we're getting this year here, is that people are kind of getting tired of the idealism of impact investing and sustainable finance, and so it needs to be brought back to very concrete, direct advantages for the consumers and for the financiers. So does the international community have a role to play in that? Can the public sector incentivize the private sector?
Absolutely. I think it's really key. There is enough evidence to show that if you invest in risk reduction, it's the best return on investment.
There's an actual financial upside to it.
Actually, there is. 3 weeks ago, I was in New Zealand, Napier, which was affected by a cyclone and accompanying floods 2 years ago. And I myself saw a flood embankment. The community there had invested 4 million New Zealand dollars to raise the embankment for more fierce floodings for the future. And the flooding that happened two years ago, it protected at least 10,000 households. And it must have saved them at least 100 million New Zealand dollars. So the return in this case is 1 to 25. But how do we highlight these examples and make a case for what I would call a full spectrum approach to financing disaster risk reduction? You need public money from national budgets. You need private money because, when private sector invests in resilience, it benefits itself.
Yes. And you can feed innovation as well.
Exactly. And insurance and climate money. So we have to bring to bear all the financial instruments that we have at our disposal to invest in resilience.
So, we've had decades of frameworks of grand targets that we're trying to reach for the environment, for climate change. Is the international coordination kind of waning? Is it failing, or do we see some sort of a fatigue?
In my area of work on disaster risk reduction, not at all. As I said a few minutes ago, we have real achievements. We have reduced the loss of lives from disasters in the last 10 years. We have improved access to early warning like never before in the history of humanity. But have we done enough? No. There's a great degree of optimism that if we get our act together, if we get our heads together, if we bring together our imagination, our initiative, our resourcefulness, we can actually begin to see reduction in losses from disasters. And I gave you the example of New Zealand. New Zealand is an advanced economy. You can see that even in emerging economies, even in landlocked developing countries, even in small island developing states. I saw the example of, look at the example of Nepal, where before the 2015 earthquake in Kathmandu Valley, they invested in strengthening school buildings, 150 school buildings, to make them earthquake resilient.
So is this
None of those buildings fell. All of them survived.
So is this one area of international relations where countries actually do cooperate and agree and advance on issues?
Absolutely. I think there is no doubt that reducing risk, reducing the impact of disaster on lives and livelihoods of people, it is something which is a topic which brings together the whole community. And we have tremendous amount of goodwill and a lot of people working, not just at the international level, but also the community of practitioners at the national, subnational and local levels, which gives me a lot of hope.
And so what will be your main takeaway from this Building Bridges edition?
I think I am learning a lot. I'm learning a lot about what the financial sector is doing. I just sat in a conversation on how we can bring to bear insurance products to serve nature, to make more robust the natural systems, the ecosystems, and then derive resilience benefits, economic benefits from them. So there is a lot of innovation happening there. Public sector is quite alive to what is happening here, and now there is much greater willingness to provide a suitable, more conducive public policy environment for a lot of the discussion that is happening here to flourish.
So you'll be back next year?
Absolutely.
Kamal Kishore, thank you very much for being with us. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
That's it for today. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Basis Points YouTube channel.